I would like to thank the Council for the National Interest for organizing this event and inviting me to speak along with such a distinguished and brave speakers as Uri Avneri, Menachem Klein, Edward Peck. And I would also like to thank all of you for coming out here this afternoon to hear me speak. It's widely recognized that the United States is in serious trouble in the Middle East. Therefore, one would expect Congress to be holding hearings to determine what has gone wrong in that strategically important region and what might be done to fix the problems that we face. In particular, one would expect Congress to examine American policy toward Israel. After all, the U.S.-Israel relationship, to quote from a recent AIPAC press release, is the keystone of America's policy in the Middle East. But such hearings are not taking place and will not happen in the foreseeable future. We all know the reason why, although few of you will say it publicly. The Israel lobby, which is probably the most powerful interest group in Washington today, and certainly the most influential foreign policy interest group in American history, will not allow either the House or the Senate to critically examine the special relationship that exists between Israel and the United States, and which the lobby has worked so long and hard to build. Instead, the lobby demands that legislators support Israel generously and unconditionally. And the lobby usually gets what it wants. Of course, anyone who says that the Israel lobby profoundly influences U.S. Middle East policy is likely to be called an anti-Semite or some other terrible name. But any fair-minded look at the evidence makes it clear that Alan Dershowitz was correct when he said that, quote, "My generation of Jews became part of what is perhaps the most effective lobbying and fundraising effort in the history of democracy," and that the prominent pro-Israel journalist Jeffrey Goldberg was correct when he said that AIPAC is, quote, "a leviathan among lobbies." Former Senator Ernest Hollings surely would not disagree with that assessment. After all, he noted as he was leaving office in 2004, you can't have an Israeli policy other than what AIPAC gives you around here. Let us consider in more detail how the lobby operates on Capitol Hill. To start, AIPAC scrutinizes almost every candidate running for Congress. Its president, Howard Friedman, told the organization's members in 2006, quote, "AIPAC meets with every candidate running for Congress. These candidates receive in-depth briefings to help them completely understand the complexities of Israel's predicament and that of the Middle East as a whole. We even ask each candidate to author a position paper on their views of the U.S.-Israel relationship, so it's clear where they stand on the subject." AIPAC also closely monitors the voting record of every representative and senator, and then plays a key role in steering campaign contributions to candidates or incumbents who it considers pro-Israel. Those who are seen as hostile to Israel, on the other hand, can expect AIPAC to guide campaign contributions to their opponents. The end result of this constant pressure is that few members of Congress are willing to cross the lobby. Senator Chuck Hagel put the point well when he recently said that, quote, "The political reality is that the Israel lobby intimidates a lot of people up here. The success of this intimidation is reflected in votes on matters relating to Israel, which almost always pass with overwhelming support in both the House and the Senate." Journalist Michael Massing reports that a congressional staffer sympathetic to Israel told him, quote, "We can count on well over half the House, 250 to 300 members, to do reflexively whatever AIPAC wants. Similarly, Stephen Rosen, the former AIPAC official who has been indicted for passing classified government documents to Israel, illustrated AIPAC's power for Jeffrey Goldberg by putting a napkin in front of him and saying, quote, "In 24 hours, we could have the signatures of 70 senators on this napkin." As most of you know, these are not idle boasts. It's important to emphasize that not everyone in the lobby is Jewish, and that some of Israel's strongest backers on Capitol Hill are Christian Zionists, like former House Speaker Richard Armory, who said in September 2002 that, quote, "My number one priority in foreign policy is to protect Israel." One would think the top priority for any U.S. representative would be to protect America. If there was an abundance of support for Israel in the public and up here on Capitol Hill, there would be no need for a lobby, especially one that feels compelled to vet every potential representative and senator and then closely monitor those who get elected. The real situation here on Capitol Hill was nicely summed up by a senator speaking on condition of anonymity to a Washington Post reporter in 1991. Quote, "My colleagues think AIPAC is a very, very powerful organization that is ruthless and very, very alert. 80% of the senators here roll their eyes on some of the votes. They know that what they're doing isn't what they really believe is right, but why fight on a situation where they're liable to get beat up on?" One might also respond to my analysis by arguing that interest group politics have been at the heart of the American political system since the country's founding, and that the Israel lobby simply operates more effectively than other interest groups. It is a Leviathan, so the argument goes, but there is nothing wrong with that. There is no question that pro-Israel individuals and organizations act for the most part like other interest groups. Nevertheless, it is not good for our body politic, for any interest group, especially one that cares greatly about a foreign country, to have so much influence on Capitol Hill. For example, it is not good for our democracy to have AIPAC vetting every prospective congressman to make sure that he or she has politically correct views on Israel and the U.S.-Israeli relationship. It is not good for our democracy to have AIPAC determining our Israel policy, or to have the key foreign policy committees in the House chaired by committed American Zionists like Tom Lantos and Howard Berman, who only welcome testimony by individuals who are deeply committed to Israel and who believe that what is good for Israel is good for the United States and vice versa. In short, when it comes to Israel, Congress is not doing its job, and for the good of our country, this problem needs to be fixed. If the Founding Fathers were alive today, they would be appalled to see how much power a lobby with an abiding commitment to another country has over Congress, as well as other important institutions in our society. This would certainly hold true for George Washington, who warned in his famous farewell address about the dangers that would arise if the United States had a passionate attachment for another country.